All right, well, if there's no other questions,
Well, I just,
you have one more question? Go ahead.
Again for Chief Carter. So I have two questions technically. The first question is 2 or 3 years ago, how many calls, medical calls, have you got and where are we at today? And the second thing is the golf course that's in Keystone, well, in Bradford County. I'm not really sure how that works. There was discussion of it being done away and a community coming in there. And then you also have the RV park who's expanding and adding in more housing. So I'm afraid that as long as we continue with this housing development, the medical calls are going to substantially increase. So who's going to handle, how are they going to handle all the burden of all those calls?
Yeah, to give you accurate numbers, I'd have to again pull those numbers from our data for 2 to 3 years ago. And again, I can tell you that we would have to take a look at our unit hour utilization, which basically tells us how taxed our EMS units are. That says, hey, we need to increase or we need to not. But with adding the fire station down there in Speedville, the response out of there is advanced life support. So even if we don't have an ambulance that we can send there at that time, we do have a fire truck that can get there and stabilize a patient currently until an ambulance can't get on site. But yeah, that's something that we look at every year as far as how busy are our trucks. And that's something that we did recently when we reduced the number of interfacility transfers that we were taking out of the hospital here. And we've essentially eliminated those other than just truly life-threatening urgent needs that have to go now. So again, something that we look at all the time and figuring out what we need for our response. So the community paramedicine program has helped actually with our repeat users that we have. We have significantly reduced the number of calls that we're going to for the frequent calls that we are recurring to the same addresses. So has certainly helped in that regard. But yes, his calls are going up. But exciting news unrelated to the fire assessment. We actually just started our medication assisted therapy program through Lieutenant Weeks's CRP program, and we had our first dosing patient today that we dosed with our medication assisted therapy. So huge step forward for our CRP program.
All right, thank you.
if I can ask them one question, as she mentioned the RV park.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with all those people out there, I mean, there won't be any assessment on them, or they will be?
Can you speak to that one, Jeff?
Because of course, some of them do, I think, live out there.
Sure.
Yeah, so RV parks by Florida statute have to be treated in the same manner as commercial properties or other similar non-residential properties like hotel, motel, and that type of thing. So they are charged for their number of permitted RV spaces and a square footage, and I don't remember the exact number.
500, I believe, Joe.
Was it five? Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was 400 or 500, but they are assigned a square footage based on that. And then, they're a bit unique there. There's some things that you can think about doing for them if they have vacancies and different things like that, but they are assessed. And if there are any permanent structures there, mobile homes or single family dwelling units, anything like that, those would be assessed, as well as any commercial buildings or anything like that they have. So they definitely would be assessed.
Thank you.
All righty,
I think Gene wanted.
Mr. Melvin.
My name is Gene Melvin. I think most of the board know who I am. I've lived in Brooker my entire life. I serve as mayor of the town of Brooker, and I took the initiative last 6 months to go through the community and a little bit of Bradford County and talk about this fire assessment tax. I dealt with primarily the ones on fixed incomes. I've served for, like I said, 45 years, and we haven't raised the taxes in Brooker in buku-oodles of years. Matter of fact, every year we roll back the millage rate. My concern to people is these folks on fixed incomes are struggling as bad as they possibly can. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, much less today, but and we don't know what the world's going to look like in the next few years. But these folks on fixed incomes that I've dealt with, and I've dealt with a bunch of them, time they pay their mortgage payment, or rent, feed their children, buy fuel, utilities, they don't have a lot of extra money left over. And the town council, we met a couple of weeks ago, and we signed, I think, on the reading of the first, Chris, am I correct? First reading. Town council has not accepted this fact on $167. I think that our goal right now is to see that that's $84. Now, if you increase it, we increase our water rates 50 cents or $1, and I'm going to tell you, my phone rings off the hook for 50 cents and $1. I feel for these people on fixed incomes they're struggling and their hardships, and I really think this board should take this in consideration by all means. And like I said, I talk to people on the outside, talk about getting them to move into Bradford County. The first thing they look at is your 10 meals. That's not encouraging. Do we want encouragement or discouragement? But our philosophy out there and what I have felt through the community, I don't know if the board would agree on $167. That's my personal opinion. I can't speak for the rest of them. But after going through the county and going through the municipality out there in Brooker, these folks are hurting. You wouldn't think so by just looking at them, and they won't admit it. But a bunch of them admit it. Now, as far as the fire department, they're excited about a fire department there in Brooker, and eventually get a rescue out there in Brooker. But as far as the $167, I don't think right now it would fly out there in Brooker, and I think it would put a hardship on many, many families out here, not only in Brooker, but in Bradford County also. So my recommendation is stay with $84. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All righty. All right, we'll see you. No more questions. Our next workshop is May 6th, and that will be a morning meeting at 10:30. So unless y'all have anything else? Okay, this meeting's adjourned. What do you want? Do you want to go right into the planning and zoning, and then after that, we'll take a quick break? Okay. All right, well, if y'all are ready, we'll go ahead and start this. The Bradford County Board of Adjustments regular meeting, it's Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. It is 6:30, and at this time, we'll call the meeting to order. And I'll turn it over to... Sure, okay. Well, they said go, so...
Well, then make me one for this one and one for the other. But if you
And then, Chris, and then after this meeting, we'll take a break. Does that sound good? 5-minute break, we'll go next. Sounds great. Thank you.
Thought maybe y'all had a little fridge or something.
No, I've got the cooler.
Yeah, I don't worry about it.
Bad. He said that this one, we're only gonna talk about what's on this agenda. Sure. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Hey. How you doing? Good. Good to see you, man. Okay. Okay. Good. Good man,
So do we have an agenda?
take care of that. Yes, sir. Been good. Been good. How about you? Yeah. Yeah, I know the feel.
If she has one. I'm sure she does.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
So I guess it's gonna propose, we got a bunch of comments from cards coming in, but for this board adjustment, we're only gonna take comments for this right here. only. And then the other,
Yes, I'm ready now.
All right, so now we're going to start the meeting for the Board of Adjustments. Call this meeting to order. First item is old business. Consider approval or corrections to the minutes from the following previous meeting. I just need a motion and a second from the Board of Adjustment meeting held on Tuesday, February 20th, 2025.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for Tuesday, February 2025.
I have a motion from Commissioner Andrews,
Second.
second from Commissioner Daltrey. Any discussion? All in favor by sign, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. All right, now we'll go over to new business, and I'll turn this over.
Okay, very well. Just to make note, this is the Board of Adjustments meeting for, again, Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. We did start probably around 6:35-ish. Anyways, the new business is V25-02, an application by Colton Bass to request a variance be granted as provided for in Section 4.5A. Agricultural Section 4.5.7, minimum yard requirements, side lot line from a required 25 feet to a requested 10 feet along the west-east lot line of the property being described as follows. Deerfoot Hammock, Lot 13, lying in fractional Section 4 and Section 5, Township 7, South Range 21 East, Bradford County, Florida, and being Bradford County parcel number 00849-0-00213. We just need some public comments, if any, a motion and a vote.
Okay. At this time, I have public comment cards here, but if your public comment is not for this one specific item, the V25-02, we're just going to ask you to hold your comments until we start our next regular scheduled meeting, which will be as soon as this one's over. So does anybody have any public comments on this particular item here? Okay. Seeing none, or do we have a motion to change the setback from 25 feet to a requested 10 feet? Is there any discussion or?
I just have a question. Is the applicant here? Yes, I'm here. The applicant is here, okay. And has there been any opposition to it?
Not that I'm aware of. I've checked our voice messages, no emails that I can find.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve application V25-02.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor by a sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
And that's all I have for a Board of Adjustments meeting.
Okay, at this time, we're going to close this meeting out. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll start our regular scheduled meeting. Meeting adjourned. All right. Board of County Commissioners of Bradford County, Florida. It's March 18th, 2025. It is about 6:45. At this time, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And before I do, I just want to say Commissioner Thompson, as you can see, was not able to make it to the meeting tonight. And I failed to mention that earlier, and I apologize. But anyway, so at this time, I'm going to ask Commissioner Spooner to open us up in prayer and a flag salute.
With all bow, Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of serving you, dear Lord. We thank you for each and every one who is gathered here today. Oh Lord, we ask that you watch over our children that are on spring break and allow no harm to come to any of them, dear Lord. We ask, dear Lord, that we touch the heart of those who've lost loved ones during this season, dear Lord. And we have a special prayer, we say, for our school board member, Miss McCullough, who's lost her husband, worked at DuPont, and any others who have lost their loved ones during this time. Bless them in a mighty way. We thank you for the wonderful weather that you've given us and spared us from a lot of disaster, but those who are still in the midst of suffering, give them some relief, dear Father. And dear Lord, as we engage in our meeting tonight, help us to do what is best for our community and that is pleasing in your sight. We thank you and love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the list is public comments, and I've got several public comments. I'll call your name, and if you would, just please come forward to the mic and state your name and your address, and limit it to 3 minutes. And it's not a question and answer time. It's just a time for you to make your public comments. So the first one I have on this is I apologize. Damian Fragata? Okay.
Damian Fragata, 19027 Northwest 69th Lane. So I'm here to request that Summers subdivision be halted due to serious misconduct by county officials and others involved. On August 1st, 2024, I sold a 5-acre parcel under the false belief that my property could not be parceled into less than 5 acres unless to an immediate family member, with no exceptions. Randy Andrews explicitly told me this was the law and that no exceptions existed. Immediately after the sale, Randy's close friend, Hunter Schaff, subdivided the same 5 acres into 1-acre lots, exactly what Randy claimed was impossible. Upon learning of the subdivision, I confronted Randy. During our conversation, he contradicted himself multiple times, initially insisting that only family sales were allowed, then saying it was a catch-22, and finally backtracking from using that term. His demeanor and inability to give a straight answer made it clear he was lying through his teeth. Realizing the severity of this deception, I escalated the matter to County Manager Scott Cornegay. Scott acknowledged Randy's wrongdoing and even asked if I wanted the property back. My only request to Scott, and still is, to halt the subdivision since the sale was based on false pretenses. He gave me his word that he would take care of it. He later left me a voicemail, which I have, stating that after consulting his legal team, Randy was going to be reprimanded for 6 different infractions. Why would he say this if there was no wrongdoing here? I have provided a police report and statement of fact that outline further evidence of this. This suggests an ongoing conflict of interest that benefits Hunter and potentially Randy at the expense of honest landowners. I also have email threads and other evidence compiled to support these allegations. Additionally, the 7-day notice and due process requirements under Florida statutes and Florida Sunshine Law were not observed, denying affected parties their lawful opportunity to participate. Based on the above facts, I'm filing a formal complaint against Randy Andrews, Scott Cornegay, and Amanda Brown, who still has not answered any of my phone calls nor returned voicemails. I have records of all that. Here are the 5 counts of violations: misuse of public position, failure to fairly and impartially execute duties, neglect of duty and willful disregard of public concern, conflict of interest and favoritism, failure to provide public notice and due process. Members of the committee, the only thing that we ask is that you stop the subdivision. I sold the property under false pretenses created by county officials' deception. At this point, all I'm asking is for the subdivision to be stopped. However, if this escalates and needs to be resolved through the court system, we will definitely be seeking a broader spectrum of justice that will include financial remunerations. I also have a meeting in Tallahassee in 2 weeks, and I'm prepared to do whatever I need to do, and I have a team of people who agree with me on this. I urge you to take action now to uphold the law, protect public trust, and ensure that Bradford County residents can rely on honest, transparent government. Thank you for your time and consideration. I have all these evidence.
Just give them to Amanda if you would, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, the next person I have is Chad. Appling? Okay.
Chad Appling, and I have a neighboring property to Damien, and I'm here for the same. He said pretty much everything I needed to say. So, but I'm here in opposition of the subdivision as well.
Okay. Thank you, Chad. And Michael Appling.
Hi, my name's Michael Appling, and I have nothing further to add other than I am here for the same opposition under Damien Fergata and my dad, Chad Appling.
Okay, thank you. Damien, I've got another, I guess this must have been a card you filled out for the other meeting. Oh, okay, sounds good. Jake McCown? Okay.
Jake McCown, 8462 Northwest County Road 229. I'm here in same reason Damien, Chad, and Michael are here in opposition of the subdivision. I moved here to kind of get away from the subdivision. If I wanted to live near a subdivision, I would, move to Gainesville. I like my space. I like my privacy, and additional 5 neighbors right up next to my property would be unfortunate, to put it lightly. But that's all I'd say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabrina Jones?
I'm Sabrina Jones. I am with the subdivision, the summer subdivision. I have no further to say. I agree with everything they have said. I'm with Damien, Michael, and Chad and all of them, but I have nothing else to say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the last one I have is Mrs. Strong.
I don't live near subdivisions. My name is Vyanda Strong, Post Office Box 530, Lottie. I'd like to talk about accountability and holding people accountable. So I guess I do want to talk about a little bit about subdivisions and county workers and taxpayer dollars. Everybody here is a taxpayer, I should hope. And everybody expects everyone to do what they're supposed to do. As a taxpayer, we hold the 5 of you guys and everybody here accountable. We expect you to do what we expect you to do with our tax dollars. We expect people to be held accountable for every dollar We want you to hold the people underneath you accountable for our tax dollars. Those people expect you to hold the people accountable for their tax dollars. We expect results. We don't expect for our tax dollars to be misused. We expect no less than accountability. The agreement with the fairgrounds, we don't expect for you to waste our tax dollars. We expect for you to look at that board and take the people off that are supposed to be taken off and put in a comprehensive plan for that money. We expect that because those are our tax dollars. We expect you to do exactly what's supposed to be done, along with every other dollar. We don't expect you to waste our money. The fire assessment, those are our tax dollars also. We expect for you to make sure that we can afford that. So not only assessing those dollars, we expect for you to look beyond what you've already done and to look outside of the box to make sure that you've done everything that you can do so that we can afford to pay for the fire, because nobody wants to have a fire. But we want to make sure that we're prepared in case of a fire. But we expect to hold everybody accountable and that you're spending our tax dollars like you're supposed to.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the comment cards I have at this time. So I'm going to move on to item 3, approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Commissioner Daughtry, second by Commissioner Andrews. Any questions? All in favor by a sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries 4-0. All right. Item 4, Rotary Club, Mr. John Williams.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Williams. I'm here on behalf of Rotary Club Stark. Before you should have a project that we are working on. We are looking this year to put in a covered pavilion at the Santa Fe boat ramp. It's something that's very needed. The Rotary Club is planning to submit grants to accomplish this, and we just want your blessing to move forward with the project.
Yes. And I thank you so much. I met with y'all at the Rotary Department, and this is a project I've been trying to get something done on this for, I don't even know how many years, 6, 8 years. It's been a long time. This would be something, Board, I guess y'all know about it. It'll be at the Santa Fe boat ramp. It'll be a pavilion. I believe it was, 24 by 30?
24 by 30.
Have a concrete slab. They'll have a couple picnic tables, and for the fishing tournaments and stuff like that, or people that just come down there to eat lunch or whatever, be a nice place to actually look out over the lake. We'll be moving the porta potty from where it is now to the opposite side, so that way it would not be where this pavilion's going to be. And I just thank you so much. I'm excited about this. I've talked to several fishermen and the people that do the tournament, and I can't thank you enough. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
So did y'all have any questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Williams, I just appreciate the Rotary Club, their willingness to do such a thing to improve the area. I know when we got the pavilion downtown, what the difference it makes, and to be able to have something like that at the lake would be great. Thanks.
We're excited about this project. We think it's going to benefit the county, benefit everyone who utilizes that space out there.
Yeah, I thank you so much. Again, Mr. Cornegay and myself and Mr. Dobbs were down there with tape measures, measuring it all off and, trying to get the maximum bang for the buck and all that and put it in the right location. So I do appreciate it, And if you ever want to meet me down there, I'll meet you down there and show you exactly where we're talking about putting. I guess you'll know that by the drawings you already got, but.
Yes, so
but,
if you look at the map, you'll see exactly where it's going to go.
Mhm.
We've got it kind of drawn out there, so.
Okay.
Good.
I sure do appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we will need a motion and a second and a vote. And the motion would be to allow the Rotary Club of Keystone or Rotary Club of Stark to move forward with the pavilion project at the boat ramp.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I would offer that motion to allow the Rotary Club of Stark to do this project.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second, and again, we sure do appreciate it. All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. All right, item 5, a presentation from NV5. I didn't know if Mr. Craig was going to be here or Mr. Randy. Okay,
Ryan.
Ryan. Oh, Ryan Thompson. Okay, I'm sorry, I've got Randy. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Ryan Thompson with NV5. Joining me today is Mr. Craig Brazier, as our Director of Planning, as well as Margot Moyer, who's been working with me on this project for about a year. So we're happy to be in front of you and present our final results and, get this part of the process done so you can start on the next. With that, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. Make sure I'm going the right direction. All right. The purpose of this meeting is to share our final results of the vulnerability assessment and provide our recommendations to this board. And always want to encourage the commission to stay in touch with their constituents so that they can best understand the flooding issues within the county so that your plans are most impactful in those areas. A little history. I apologize, I keep looking back. I want to make sure it's on the right slide. We're really at the start of this process. The vulnerability assessment helps the community determine what assets are vulnerable. And then following the VA is the adaptation strategies, preparing adaptation plans, and then ultimately implementation grants through the Florida Resiliency Program. And I will highlight that it is important, if not imperative, that this vulnerability assessment identifies focus areas for grants to be permitted through the implementation grants. So this assessment will need to include areas that you find need to be improved due to flooding. So these are the type of grants, if you don't mind, if I so there are 3 different types of grants through the Florida Resiliency Program. This is the planning grant, which is for the vulnerability assessment. Then there are implementation grants, and then there are RRE grants, which are regional grants that are conducted through the Regional Planning Council or through the Water Management District. But this is where your funding will come from. Just a brief overview. Last April, we met with the steering committee that included a lot of county staff, the Water Management District, Regional Planning Council representatives, as well as the City of Hampton. We collected critical assets as determined by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, who administers this grant, and verified those assets with our steering committee. Utilizing online mapping for them to be able to come through the asset data, and then ran flood models that were derived from the Water Management District and covered the 6 scenarios, 2024 as kind of a baseline, 2040 and 2070, both at the 100-year and 500-year storms. And then we compared the flood models with the assets that we collected. That's a sensitivity analysis to determine which assets were impacted, and then refine the list of assets based on critical need in a flood event or how they're impacted by that flood event. We collected over 60,000 assets. That's both through FDEP's geodatabase and online sources that we were able to obtain ourselves. We removed a lot of privately owned assets, such as wells and septics, as well as some historical, natural and cultural resources that we felt weren't critical to the county in a time of flooding event. That got us down to about 300 assets. And then we retained assets that we felt were critical in those situations or were most impacted. And also in working with county staff, identified some other assets that should be added. So to identify how impacted a asset is, it's not just on the flood model results, that's a component of it, but we partnered with High Tide Analytics, and they prepared an index, Florida flood sensitivity, that's actually comprised of a number of index that have three main components. The first looking at social, so your population around those assets and how impacted they are around the flooding areas, pardon me. And then the physical, which is the area around those assets, and then direct, which is the flooding to the asset itself. So High Tide took that information and created, a 1 to 5 how impacted is a particular asset. So we boil it down from 60,000 assets. That was just a lot. A lot of them were privately owned, which through DEP, they're looking at public assets specifically. And then boil it down to about 44 that we felt were most critical. You'll see that there are a lot of bridges. Bridges were retained because the flood model has limitations. I'll speak to that for a second. The limitations are it's county-wide. It's very difficult to have specific data on culverts, conditions of culverts, so the model is great in identifying areas of concern, but it's not detailed enough to tell you exactly the extent of that concern. So although it's good and it's appropriate at this stage in the vulnerability assessment, what you'll hear me say when we come to recommendations is those adaptation plans are to look more closely at some of these areas to determine exactly what the needs are, so that you can have very specific mitigation measures and then apply for implementation funding. Skipping ahead. I might not go on. Pardon me. You can see that these assets are scattered around the county, but when you take out the bridges, you can see that there are a few areas that are clustered. Lake Sampson being one of them. The Alligator Creek, which runs through the heart of town, that's another area, and then the Water Oak Creek to the north of that is another important area. And we included bridges as a whole, even though it's not a geographic area that you might naturally associate with the focus area, but a subject matter such as bridges could also be a focus area. So taking a look at Lake Sampson, it has a number of critical assets, one of them being the three pipes. This is the only water management system within the county. So we felt that this was an important asset to include, even though it wasn't high on our sensitivity list. It's high importance to the county with regard to flooding. So we did keep that asset. And then we think the Lake Sampson area would be an important focus area. And then, of course, Alligator Creek. There are quite a few, probably the highest density of assets within that area. Understanding that flooding from the mining operation, if combined with a flood event, could be very dangerous to the town. And so we want to, or we recommend looking further at that area. This is a substation next to UF Health. And although the focus isn't the flood maps themselves, it's how the assets are impacted in that sensitivity index. I did want to include a flood map. And so this is baseline 2024 at a 100-year storm. And although you see that the actual assets themselves aren't impacted, the area around them are. And as you progress to 2040 and 2070, the flooding gets worse. So it is of utmost importance to take a look at some of these areas. And Water Creek, I wish I had a comparable flood map for this one. I apologize. But there is a lot of flooding. A lot of it comes from outside of the county. And so including this area, and one idea might be to have county stormwater management facilities that could address some of this flooding before it goes into the local creeks. And so our recommendations are first to establish the focus areas that you want to include in the vulnerability assessment so they're eligible for future funding through the implementation grants. To prioritize these, I think Alligator Creek, because of its location proximate to the core of the city, and Water Oak Creek, being that there's a lot of flooding that comes from out of the county into that area and then through the county. Those would probably be our priorities of those focus areas. And then the next step would be that adaptation plan. And so focusing on those areas to identify exactly how the flooding could be mitigated and eventually the implementation plans. So that is my presentation. I would welcome your feedback. I want to first hear if our results are similar to what you witnessed in the county, and if there are areas that we've missed that we need to look closer at as far as assets or focus areas, more importantly. And with that, I'll conclude and listen for comments.
Chairman Rick, Mr. Thompson, all of the areas that you mentioned are critical to our area, but I also would like for you to consider a few other areas. For example, I don't know the street name, but in the Brooker area where we had the big flooding and the erosion of the, do you know that specific?
Riverbend.
Yeah, Riverbend. Riverbend would be another one. And near Chamores, that's Northeast 125th, that intersects with Northeast 6th Avenue. Whenever there's a discharge, or if there's a combination of the discharge and their flooding, 125 floods dangerously. I mean, it's like a ice, it's like a glaze of water that makes it dangerous for people passing. And so the areas that you mentioned, Northeast 12th Avenue and 171st are very critical as well. So Northeast 12th Avenue washes out totally. And so if you can consider those areas to add and take a look at that. And I know that you're probably working, getting data from the city, but when the Alligator Creek area floods, St. Clair Street and the area where Red Graves is, where the electrical apparatuses are there, that whole area floods, and that lower region. So
That was Red Graves?
Red Graves, I guess it's street or avenue. That's near the downtown, right off of 235.
Okay.
Mhm. But those are the ones that, you know, just from my observation, that happens.
Thank you.
And when we have storms, just so you know, Sampson Lake, you mentioned it,
Mhm.
it's going to flood, and it has been absolutely detrimental. I've seen people coming down a dirt road in a boat because that's the only way they could get out. Crosby Lake is going to flood. And like Ms. Spooner said, and it's private owned property, but the people at Riverbend, which is housing, there's many people that live down there. Every time we have a serious rain, all of the roads are just destroyed in there. But we have to wait till it's declared an emergency that we can repair some of the big, huge holes that makes it impassable for them. But that is some of the three of the most critical areas that we have in Bradford County.
Okay.
And I will say this, from talking with some of the people at Riverbend, you know, because you ask them the question, I'll just put it like this, why would they move back there if they saw it flooding like that? Well, 20 years ago, they said when they moved back there, they didn't have that issue. So I don't know what changed to where, like everybody's saying, that it totally floods out. So something had to have changed, because there's that creek that flows right beside it. So,
And that
yeah, if you
whole
could check
area
that.
actually becomes a river
Mhm.
flowing down the street, down the road that they go into. I mean, we've seen it,
Mhm.
and it is like nothing you've ever seen.
Okay.
Right.
And maybe focusing on, you know, where it's coming from, you know, that's impacting that area. Because, you know, just like, you know, they mentioned like Alligator Creek coming from Comores, you know, during Irma, you know, it flooded, you know, some of the areas out there, some of the housing areas, and their minimum daily flow is like 6 million gallons per day. Their maximum daily flow is 45 million gallons per day. And that day, they released 76 million gallons per day.
Wow.
So 76 million gallons coming through Alligator Creek. By the time it gets into Stark and takes a 90-degree turn, goes over St. Clair Street, Redgrave Street. So then you get the flooding in town.
Gotcha.
And then it backs up, and then it floods FP&L, City of Stark Power station they have there,
Mhm.
and then so on. And then it gets to the lakes, it bottlenecks there, floods the lakes, you know, and just keeps going on from there. So
Good.
certainly a good area to focus on and impact, you know, to all of those areas.
Thank you. That's
And I know
great
that the
information.
golf course area,
Yeah.
really, it's bad there too.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, it comes from, you know, when it's
Right.
coming from Comores, you know, just on the south side of State Road 230, and then it just, you know, comes that way. So,
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of that, I think, sheet flows across, and it gets over into 16, 171st, 12th, yeah, and Lottie, yeah, Lottie as well. Yeah, so, again, I think that, I think we know where it's coming from. It's you know,
Yeah.
how do we control it?
Right.
And,
Right.
So, and quite honestly, we've had meetings before. Senator Bradley might have been a part of one of those meetings, and you know, we hear about Army Corps of Engineers and how they've been studying it, and you know, we're really kind of overstudying it. I think it's time to, you know, move forward and try to find out how we can mitigate it. So,
Right. Yes, sir. Understood.
And one other area, I'm sorry I didn't mention it, it's also in Lauder, but it's Carter Road 227 where it intersects with Northeast Sixth Avenue. That becomes a washed out area whenever there's a light rain, and it doesn't have to be a big flood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have anything, Mr. Warner?
Well, and I will say too, just one more comment. 3 pipes, I know you mentioned it, but did we ever get the equipment, the new equipment that we were trying to get?
No, ma'am. The emergency management director, Brad Witt,
Right.
is working on that now. And so we don't really, I hadn't talked with him recently about it, but I know he is still trying to get that done.
Those pipes, of course, releases the water to try to keep the flooding down. But the equipment that's there is very, very old. I have no idea how old. But when they actually close the pipes, they have to use the jaws of life, right, to actually do that. It's like I said, it's very old equipment.
Yeah.
But the 3 pipes is very, very important to trying to keep the flooding from escalating. So.
Yeah. Mr. Thompson, I think you've mentioned the impacted areas and the focus, but I think it'd be worth that we still, each of us know when we're out in our areas and we hear from our constituents, some areas that are impacted, but certainly a follow-up, because like I said, I think you've hit the core of them, but I think there's probably a couple more that we can still, bring up to Mr. Cornegay and have a further discussion about that.
Sure. I welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to item 6, capital improvement plan. Amanda Safing. Oh, you got one more thing? Sorry, Amanda.
If I may, and it's a detail of the grant. If we could open it up to public comment. There is a sign-in sheet up here. If anybody does have public comment, I just request that you please sign the sign-in sheet for our DEP grant.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's part of the grant process, you said? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So does anybody have a public comment? Okay, Mrs. Strong.
My name is Vyonda Strong. And my public comment is, you guys didn't mention, but it seems like Comores is they seem to be the common denominator of a lot of areas. The ditch next to my mom's house, nobody wants to say about that area, but that area continues to flood when Comores releases that from the hill, from their area. It floods, and it floods her area. It comes around and floods around off of 223, Northeast 223, and comes around and floods the big ditch in Lottie, which in turn floods 301. Because that area is not cleaned out. And it floods. All of that floods. Comores keeps releasing their water. They're the common denominator.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment about the flooding? Okay.
Ms. Strong, did you
Yeah.
sign in on the sign-in sheet? You did. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Amanda?
Good evening, Commissioners. I am coming before you tonight to request an addition to the capital improvement plan from my office. We are requesting a $170,000 allotment for the 2025-2026 budget year. By no means do I hope to use that amount of money, but we do need to upgrade our tabulation equipment, which includes our tabulators themselves. We right now have 20 of them. I'm hoping to lower that to 15 which would decrease our ongoing costs on that. But we also need to upgrade our server and our server hardware and software in our office, which receives our tabulation results on election night. I've provided you guys with breakdowns of the quotes I've received so far. So how I've come up with this 170,000, just so you know, is so far right now, if we were to purchase everything tomorrow, it would be about 135 to 140,000. That is not my plan, and nor is it my current budget to do that. So waiting till October 1st, hopefully having full implementation by January of 2026. Of course, as you guys know, prices increase constantly. So that's why I've gone ahead and requested the 170,000 allotment. But again, doing whatever we can to lower that actual cost when it comes time to purchase. Do you guys have any questions for me regarding this?
I know you, okay, sorry. You probably haven't had time to check, but I was wondering if you were able to benchmark with any other sister facilities or sister cities for the machines or costs or so forth that they may have.
Yeah, so as far as our equipment goes, let me kind of talk to you about how we choose our equipment. I don't really have a lot of choice. Our server and our tabulators have to be certified by the state of Florida, and we cannot use anything that is not certified. And by certified, I mean every single component of the hardware and the software, because it has to be so secure. So we cannot purchase anything that the state has not allowed and said certified as part. So we have 2 vendors for this product, and we are under one vendor. There is another vendor in the state of Florida that is certified, and that's Dominion, but Bradford County has always been on election system and software. And that is the software and hardware and tabulations we're looking at getting next year. That's just the newer version of all of this, the upgraded software and everything. Where we can piecemeal, where I can purchase hardware pieces that fit that requirements from our own IT department instead of through their package, that saves us costs. And you'll see on our breakdown sheet that I provided that that's where we're trying to save some money on and working with our current IT Inspired to get some purchases through them. But as far as like the tabulators, they come in one component. We can't piecemeal it. It has to be done all in one because of the certifications. Any other questions?
One more question. Are you held to a certain time frame in which you have to change these?
Good question. Yes and no. Obviously, you need to keep up with what's certified. Our current system will still be certified through the gubernatorial year, 2026 election cycle. But we look at ongoing and training and updates and all that, and what we have to do to implement this for an election process in the county, since it is going to be new software. I got to give my staff time to train on it. I need to be able to update all of my materials and train our poll workers. My plan is to do that next year. Like I said, purchase in January. That gives me and my office time to do all that before the gubernatorial election in August, the primary. If we wait, then our first election using this equipment is going to be a presidential election, which is a lot busier, a lot more hectic, and I'd rather have something before that. Going back to the timeline as well, so that's one of them. The other is the age of the equipment. These tabulators are over 10 years old, and as you guys know, especially with cell phone, you can look at your cell phone, they don't last that long. The technology is always updated. And again, with security risk, anytime they see a vulnerability, especially in software, they have to recertify, resubmit to the state recertifies that, and then we have to implement it. So we're getting into maybe I could wait, but till the 2027. But again, for my thinking about the planning of the election process, I would prefer to go ahead and purchase them in 2025. So they're ready to go in 2026.
All right. Well, board, do I have a motion to, or did you have another question?
No, just that it's critical that it's well-working equipment, that it's accurate, and that, we don't want any glitches. So
Yes.
It's critical and important. So I would make the motion.
To approve up to 170,000.
Yes, and to add that as a part, we're adding as a part, what we're doing is adding as a part of our capital improvement plan. Is that, Mr. Carnegie?
You could do one motion if you're so inclined to approve the capital improvement plan as presented for 24-25 through 28-29 with one amendment to add the replacement of the precinct ballot tabulators at an amount not to exceed what has been set forth. That would be the motion.
Okay.
I would articulate that motion as stated by the attorney, Mr. Bradley. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Spooner,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Andrews. Any other questions? All righty. All in favor by sign of aye? Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
I,
much.
I do have a comment though. Just being on the canvassing board and watching everything that these people do, it's amazing. The check and the recheck and the counting and there is so much work done in that office during an election. And my hat's off to your group. You do an excellent job and we're very, very proud of you guys.
Well, thank you. And I wish my whole staff was here, but half of them are. So Sarah, we'll take that back to our other staff member. Thank you so much, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item 6B, approval of the capital improvement plan for.
We handled them all.
That was
just
it.
now.
That was
What?
it.
We did them all.
Oh, we did them all at once. Okay, that's right, with your motion. I apologize.
No, not at all.
Thanks. Somebody's got to keep me straight. All right. Moving on to item number 7, the agreement of the Bradford County Fair Association. For this, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cornegay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your packet, you have the agreement that was drafted by our attorneys and also the attorney for the Fair Association, and it's before you tonight for adoption.
Yes, sir. Can I ask some questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, our attorney, Mr. Bradley. When I read it on 4A, that, I guess the first sentence there, where it says BC shall lease the real property for BCFA for 1 year with the option to renew for additional 1 year, et cetera, and shall reconstitute its board of directors to include nine directors. It does go ahead and clarify in the latter part of the paragraph on how that would be done, but when I initially read it, it implies that BCFA has the nine directors. So if I initially interpreted it that way, maybe others would, and I was just going to ask if after the line that says to include 9 directors, that the reconstructed board, if the reconstructed board would, let me see, the reconstructed board will be comprised of appointees selected by Bradford County FA and by the Bradford County Board of County Commissioners. I know it's clarified in the latter part, but at the beginning, it almost implies that BCF would have those 9 in the way I read it.
Certainly not the intention of the language. I think what the language is expressing is that the board is the board for the BCFA, so they do have to. It's that organization and it's their board, and so that's what it's meant to imply. And let me be clear: the way that it's written cannot be subject to other interpretation. In that 4 would be appointed by the BCC, 4 would be appointed by the fair, and then you, the BCC, would appoint the chairperson who would break any ties, right? It's for a year lease. So after a year, if things are evolving in a manner that is not to your comfort level, you have no obligation to renew. And you can go back to the drawing board in terms of how to constitute, however, when you constitute it, because you own the property once this agreement is followed through. So that's how it's set up.
Okay.
So it's set up when this agreement is signed and done.
Right.
The Board of County Commissioners, they're signing.
You would own the property.
We would own the property, all the property.
All the property.
Not like the last email. Okay, would own all the property,
That's what this agreement
all four parcels.
contemplates. If they sign this agreement, then the deed would include all the property.
Okay,
And the board would be constituted as I described. It would be leased to the Fair Association for a year. And then after a year, that, like, if you owned a piece of property that you lease to somebody else and it's a year lease, after a year, the lease ends. You can renew it or you can not renew it. It's up to you. The idea being that, you know, things aren't going well after a year, then you can revisit the matter. Things are going swimmingly, then you have the option to renew. And you could even say, you know what, it's going so well, we'll do a 5-year lease after a year. You're not restricted, you know, at that point to from approaching it in a different way after a year. But you know, considering what the county's being asked to do, I think it's appropriate that A, you own all the property, and B, that you make sure that it's being managed in a way where you're comfortable with the majority of the board members being folks who are appointed by you for that first year. And if that isn't even working, for whatever reason, you can revisit it in a year. So I see that as a way of maximum protection for the county's interest. I'm not commenting on anything that happened before or will happen in the future. But if you're the owner of the property and you're being asked to put taxpayer money up to solve a problem, then I think it's very appropriate for the people who elect you know, for you to be the entity that controls the use of that property, because you're asking taxpayer dollars to be used at this point, to be used to solve this problem. So that's sort of that's the concept of what is before you.
And the board members that we assign, I mean, so that we will have some control on how the operation is going, correct? I mean,
well, you will appoint 5. I hope everybody works together and you never have to worry about this again. Okay. Right. So you're not going to have an agenda item every week saying, let's dictate how these 5 people vote. In other words, you're going to appoint 5 people, right? And they're going to go off and do what they're going to do. All right. And along with their 4 members that are appointed by the Fair Association. And hopefully they can work collegially and work together, team effort to the 9 of them make this the greatest fair in the state. And the other events that happen out there. Right. Right. And, but certainly if you're observing things that are going on out there and the 5 you appointed or the collective is not doing what you want to do, you know, you certainly have appointment powers over those 5. All right. But it's not intended to be a micromanagement situation by its design. It's intended to be, you got 5 people you trust, not that you don't trust the 4 that they're going to appoint.
Right.
But you got the 5 that, you know, you put in there and they're going to go forth and conquer, right? Understand that this is going to be a new way of doing business in the sense that included in the agreement is a requirement that be a sunshine board.
Okay.
Because these are commissioner appointed. So you're now, and it's your property. This is a new way. I mean, so all the, you know, the things that are required with the sunshine board, there's going to be minutes taken, there's going to be notices, all the things that you have to comply with. And that's not being just trying to be an annoyance or anything. That's because we believe that you've now appointed these individuals and they are representing you in many respects, both literally and you know, by virtue of how they got there in their appointment and the fact that they're there because of you, right? And so I think that I think it would be, if I were a judge considering whether the sunshine law was, this board had to comply with the sunshine law, I say it probably does. I don't think it's 100% sure. It would be an interesting question. Doesn't matter. We're resolving that question. Let's have it do the sunshine. All right. Now, after a year, if things aren't working because that's being too onerous or whatever it is, then we'll see how things go for a year. I see it as like a year trial run under this new arrangement that we find ourselves in. And I hope that this resolves the matter, because obviously I can sense that it's caused some angst, you know, and that's unfortunate, because this should be a happy place for the community.
Very.
Where
And then-
happy things happen,
And
you know?
And the alternative is if we do nothing, then it's gone.
You don't want to, I think that's a potential alternative, Commissioner, for sure, because there's a pending foreclosure action, and the plaintiff in that foreclosure action has a lien that he can exercise. I mean, it's for an amount that the property may be worth more than that. I don't know what the property, I haven't done it, you know, but it is such that you certainly put at risk the fact that you know, if I were a developer and I was interested in this property, I may be interested in showing up at that sale.
Okay.
You know, at that foreclosure sale,
Right.
where he gets paid off. The guy who made the loan, who I haven't met, but understand is, you know, honorable person who's participating in this matter, and but there may be somebody who's willing to pay more than that, you know, to own the property. You just never know what's going to happen. So this does guarantee that it remains in the public sphere for
So-
sure, which I think is appropriate, considering that y'all put money there. I know the state has at various times, and it's unfortunate that we find ourselves in this situation, but this is a way forward for bigger and brighter things if the fair signs the other side of the agreement.
Senator Bradley, with that, the property, when it was reconstructed and the grant money came from the Department of Agriculture for that building, the appropriation, and it's to be used as.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, and it's
I was
to be used, yeah,
I was the
that's right.
appropriations chairman. I got that money.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so was that the department it came from? I mean, is that?
I can't remember. I think we probably ran it through the department,
Okay.
but it was in the
Okay.
budget as a special appropriation.
So my question is then, with that building being a designated shelter, okay, how?
I
would
wouldn't.
somebody else-
I think that you know, it certainly would be. I would be disappointed if I were the state of Florida and I invested in this matter, and it ends up in some developer's hands or some.
What was intended to be a shelter ends up
Some,
being
you know,
something else, yeah.
some
Okay.
situation that doesn't involve it.
Right.
Not only serving the purpose of people's enjoyment and
Yeah.
and educating kids who need to learn about agriculture and all the things that a fair does, in addition to the services that it provides to the
Mm-hmm.
community at whole whenever we face hurricanes and other natural disasters, right? So it serves that double purpose.
Okay.
I would be very upset if I were the state of Florida.
Okay.
And I saw that money basically went down the tube.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
okay.
So I think this is a good way of it's one of 7,000 reasons I think that you are considering moving forward in this
Okay.
manner. But yes, it's a good reason amongst several others to move forward in this manner.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
know?
Thank you.
That answered my question.
Okay. Oh, that answered your question? Okay. All right. Yeah, because Ward, I think this would be good moving forward, because there's some people that were on that fair association for over 30 years that would be able to bring us some knowledge to help us get this thing up and going. And so I think it'll be a good venture, the way we're doing it, the way you draw it up. So
Yeah, I
go
think
very
that,
well.
I think it's a reasonable way forward,
Mhm.
and with the appreciation of the good that's happened in the past and
Right.
acknowledgement of things that probably need to be repaired
Mhm.
that happened in the past, you're fixing those in the sense that you're removing this debt that is encumbering this, and and then you're moving forward brighter and bigger, but with control.
Right.
So that if it goes bad, there's accountability, but it's not, because you're not going to let it.
Correct.
I'll offer a motion.
Okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Spooner.
We'll need to state that motion.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I offer a motion, to, on this 18th day of March, to approve the agreement with Bradford County Fair Association, Inc. for the payoff of the promissory note for the fairground property in exchange for the association to transfer the property to Bradford County.
We have a motion from Commissioner Spooner.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Andrews. Is there any other questions? All in favor by a sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Senator Bradley. Thank you. All right. Item 8, clerk's report. No comments. Sheriff's report. I don't see the sheriff. You don't want to give the report, okay? County manager's report.
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. County attorney report. You good?
I'm out of breath,
That's good.
and y'all are sick of hearing it from me.
Okay. Commissioners' comments. Commissioner Daughtry?
I don't have anything, just other than thank y'all for being here. Thank you for your public comments. And I think our astronauts made it home. Do we know?
I hope so. They did.
Praise God. That's good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Glad. Yeah. All right.
Brevity is the order of the night. So we're going to be traveling to Tallahassee to meet with our legislators. And also, I just wanted to thank the road department, Mr. Dodge, for getting work started on the roads in Lodi.
Just thank you all for being here and being a part of this conversation, being a part of helping us to make the decisions that we make, because it does involve each and every one of you. And with that, tough decisions tonight, but hopefully we did what was the right thing to do. So thank you all for being here.
All right. And again, I thank everyone for being here tonight. I appreciate all your comments and interest, and we'll see what we can do to get some of these problems resolved. And especially thank you, Mr. John. I really do appreciate that. That's going to be awesome when we get that built. And other than that, I have no other comments, and this meeting's adjourned.